How many people look for channel partners? How many people look for customers? How many people look for vendors? And finally, how many people look for money? Frankly, I think that at any given moment in a company's life, the CEO or the executive team has to look for money at least 4 to 6 times. Sometimes it's brutal, sometimes it's easy. What I'm going to talk to you about applies to both a equity or a debt. And I listen to guys all the time telling me, hey, I walked into the bank the other day and I looked for a loan and they won't give me one. And I said, well, what did you say to the banker? Oh, the banker knows me. He knows what I do. He knows how much money I have. I said, why would a banker offer you money if he doesn't understand where you are today and where you're going in the future? And the guy goes, he's my banker. So I called up bankers and I said, hey, bankers, what do you want to hear from a company if they need a loan? And the banker said, I want them to pitch me on where they are and where they're going. So people don't really realize, especially C-suite, what it takes to get somebody to give you money. So years ago, what I did is I started I was actually part of a network of angel investors. And one of the problems we had is that only 5% of the companies that came through that door would actually get money from us. And I'm sitting there going, wait a minute, I know these guys, 100 guys. Why aren't they investing in these companies? So I started the research. After the first year, hi, thanks for coming. Somebody's phone's going off. So after the first year, I said, you know, I'm going to change this model. What I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out what's going on in the minds of the investors, because I sit there and I look at these pitches and I want to go to sleep. And then I want to have these CEOs learn what it means to communicate to an investor, but faster. So we put together a program called Pitch Pro. We put it in place. At the time, it wasn't Pitch Pro, it's just a program. And we went from 5% of the companies getting money to over 30% getting money. The investors were happier. The CEOs were happier. It wasn't quite a miracle, it was just mechanical. What we found out was investors want to hear certain pieces of information lined up. They don't want to guess. They're not ready, for example, to hear all about your product. However, you're excited and you want to tell them everything you know. And I get it. I've been a CEO. My first company was 1988. Been there, done that. What you have to do is you have to line everything up with very succinct, simple messaging. And why simple? Because as smart as investors are, they don't know what you do. They don't really understand where you're coming from. They don't know how you got there. But they're willing to listen. And they've got big old wallets. So one of the things we did is we started out with a very simple process. I'll give you an example. I was on the phone the other day with a CEO. Great guy. Long discussion. He starts out with me on the phone and he goes, let me tell you about the history of X. We went back 2,000 years. Honestly, 2,000 years. He walked me through the history of this, and by that time I was done. And that only took him about 5 to 10 minutes. But he never got to the point. He never got to how much money he needed. He never got to why his team can deliver. He never got to what the market really looks like. And I sat there, and at the end of the 25-minute discussion, I said, I have to go now. I'm sorry. And the guy says, well, what do you think? I said, well, I think that I don't have any idea what you're really doing. I understand the premise, but that's it. So this is what happens with CEOs, it happens with CFOs, everybody. But once you learn mechanically how you put a pitch together, when you go to find a vendor, and you're a startup or early stage company of any kind, and you're trying to talk that vendor into something, you know what? If you give them everything they want, they make a decision almost while they're sitting in front of you. They get so much that they go, I like what you're saying. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to find a strategic partner, but years ago I had a wonderful mentor. And he said, Ken, there are 5 slides you need to get a strategic partner. I thought he was lying. I tried it. I got a strategic partner. He put $2 million into the company. All of it happened right in the room. The CEO stood up and goes, that's what I want. His 5 or 6 guys in the room, they all sat there and went, uh-oh, now we can't negotiate. And they didn't. So the point being is everything you do is pitch. And once you learn the mechanics of pitching, it is so much simpler than you think. The stress comes off of you because it's not that every investor's ready to give you money, but the problem is getting them to give you the truth. So you pitch. If you do a good job of pitching, they look at you and say, you know what? Question and answer time. Early due diligence. If they start asking those questions and you stick to your script, you stay consistent with your messaging. If you don't know the answer, don't try to answer it right there on the spot. I call it thinking and talking. That's when somebody goes off the rails and they keep talking about everything that they can think of to talk about right then because they're not really sure what the answer should be. Don't do it. It happens all the time. So think about this. When you go to pitch, you start simply. Simply means a slide that has the company name, down in the corner your name and your title. Because when you're in a room or even with an individual, that investor is trying to connect with you. And don't you want him to connect with you personally and not with the slide? You know, hey, this is a really pretty slide up here. Isn't that really beautiful? No, you want them to say, hey, you really know what you're doing. So you talk about yourself. You give a little analogy, a little background maybe. And then your next slide. There's a problem in the world and I'm going to fix it. And you guys are in the fix the problem world. I mean, gosh, medical device. To me, this is where the world changes, is in this room. And if you do a good job of a very simple problem statement, and it might be 3 bullets. But remember, an investor speaks in only 2 languages, percentages and dollars. So when you start talking, and if you start talking about how you made the thing out of your basement, and then we brought it here, and I met this guy Bob, and then Bob's working on it, they're not there yet. They don't want to know your history yet. They will eventually, but not yet. So you get out the basic problem statement, 40% of the market, 20% of the market, $80 billion. There's a problem in the world. Your next slide, I'm going to fix that problem. You take the same bullet points, exactly the same, put them on your solution slide, and you restate them, but now you fix them. So now they can tie the problem to the solution visually, and with you, you know the problem and the solution. They go, I trust this guy. You're building confidence very quickly. And this happens fast. I can do a pitch in 5 minutes over a cocktail, or I can do one in 10 minutes. Anything over 10 minutes, you're kind of talking about things nobody needs to know about. So once you've gotten those slides down, now you've got to talk about your company. As an investor, what are we really investing in? Are we investing in you? Wait a minute, if you die, what do I do? Oh, crap. Oh, my money's gone. We're really investing in the company. Your ability to drive the company is important, but we're investing in the company. If that's the case, build me a picture of a company that I care about. Okay, what do I care about in a company? All of the key ingredients that make it a home run. That's what I want to know about. You don't have to tell me, wow, we're going to take the world by storm. We're going to become a billion-dollar company. Not true. Most companies are sold before they even get to 100 million. So don't everybody, you're going to be a billion-dollar company. Give them the facts. We started here. We raised the money here. Here's what the product does. Here's how far along we are. Here's what we need next. We have a supply chain worked out. We have channel partners worked out. We have some pilots that we're going to be doing. Make it really clean and simple. I call it compel, don't sell. You're not trying to sell the investor. You're compelling him to look at it. And once he looks, then he gets involved. And I've seen every version of a pitch you can imagine. I've actually sat in a room where the CEO starts pitching, And the investor takes over and goes, yeah, I know that slide, that's what I mean, that's exactly what I'm talking about. 4 months later, we found out that the investor had no money. He had put all his money in portfolio companies. He was raising another $48 million, and we only found that because we met somebody who knew him personally. Just because he thinks, oh my God, this is great, doesn't mean you have a deal or anything close. So now you get to your company. The next thing we want to know about is, who's the team that says they can deliver this? A team, not an individual. Sometimes you have to put a little crowd around you as an early stage company. That crowd's going to change quick. Right now, we just, one of the companies I own a piece of, we had to change one of the founders out. And I will tell you, it's not fun. But if everybody understands it's a business, then when time comes to make these changes, it's more mechanical and less personal. He kept his stock, everything was good. He felt that he had come to a point where he couldn't advance the product. He was more of an inventor than an engineer, trained engineer. So we took the job. But as you get to your team, you don't have to explain everything about what that person's done. For example, if I have a biz dev guy on my team and he worked for IBM, and let's say he sold mainframes. Well, that's really cool. And he did $200 million a year in sales. That's totally impressive. Except I'm a software company. I'm not a hardware company. And what's this guy going to do for me? And the investor looks at him and goes, oh, well, you know, that guy's a hardware. But there's ways to magically fix things. What does the BD guy do best? Relationships. Long-term relationships. So when you put his name in, you put the little information down there, a bullet point might say, has built long-term relationships with biggest corporations or tier 1 companies, blah, blah, blah. So there's a way to put your team together so you each complement each other so that that team actually melds together. Next thing you want to get into is the market. I don't know. How many of you say when you're talking about your market that you're going to penetrate it at half of 1/10 of 1% and become a $1 billion company? All, if you've never done it before. Everybody says that. Every single person I run into goes, we're going to be a $1 billion company, and we only need 1 round of funding. And every investor goes, okay, how can I get out of here quick without hurting this guy's feelings? That's the truth. Everyone says it. It's not true. Every company needs multiple rounds of funding, and it doesn't matter who they are, including IBM and AT&T and everybody else. When their stock goes up and they've got more money to play with, that's funding. Uh-oh, stock went down, they're not spend all that. It's just the process. So learning to pitch is something you're going to use in every aspect of your business, not just one. And when you get really good at pitching, that's when you're going to actually bring more money to the table, smarter people to the table. You're going to move faster into the market. Everything's going to be a home run. So you've got your storyline, your team, you go into the market. One of my favorite go-to-market is fairly simple. People understand the basics of going to the market. You want it very linear and very simple. If you're going to do a few pilots unpaid, it's okay if they're unpaid. Investors know they're unpaid. Get it in there. Here's how you're going to track the market. However, with this pilot, we get this. We're going to do 5. Very simple. The next one, though, is the slide that everybody makes a mess on. It's the business model. Business model means different things to different people, so let me clarify. When I say business model, how do you make money? I'm going to sell this widget for this much. I get this much profit. It's going to cost me this much in expenses. That's what I make. As an investor, I want to see the business model. I want to know that you actually understand the mechanics. Great, when I was with a company the other day, they do about $40 million a year. CEO's an expert in his industry. I said, what's your business model? And he rattled it off. He goes, we buy shoes out of Italy at $5 to $10. We mark them up to $300. Online, we sell them at a discount and make this much. through all the stores, we sell them, and we make this much. Here's our blended revenue model. I looked at him and I went, wow, that was clear, I got it. That's what you want. You want something so simple anybody can actually understand what you're doing. After your business model, you got to talk about the competition, don't you? Everybody's got competition. However, a lot of CEOs, especially startup CEOs, when I say, what's your competition like? We don't have competition. We're so innovative, nobody's ever seen this before. Okay. Guess what? There's $1 out there, and your customer's going to spend $1. And when he goes to spend $1, guess what's going to happen? He's going to spend it on you or someone else. You have competition. You may not call it competition today, but you will call it competition. Years ago, I had a company that was very, very technical, data center in a box, very complicated. I couldn't figure out why we couldn't break into the market. We were having a hell of a time. So I called up a few friends. I said, hey, what are you hearing out there? One of them says, well, there's this little company called Sun, and they have a huge war chest, and they're selling against you. I said, but they don't do what we do. Well, there's this one division, and they're a server division. I said, well, what do you suggest? He goes, well, frankly, they have so much money, they're giving equipment away. 2 years free. I said, wow, how do I beat that? So finally, I picked up the phone and I called the guy who runs that division. I said, hey, let's sit down. We sat down. 4 months later, I had a contract with Sun to resell my product because it was 5 times more exciting than anything they'd seen. So I got 200 salespeople in one second. But that was what I should have been doing, and that's how you get through these competitive problems. But when you do your competition in a slide deck, it's got to be very simple. We have these 5 features. They're all great. Nobody else has those 5 features. Make it simple. The next, you need to have your financials, of course, in the deck. I don't know about you guys, but financials, I kind of love them, but it takes a lot out of your brain to put those things together. I mean, the complexity, you can't even, I mean, sometimes you just look at that Excel spreadsheet and you want to go, I got to go drink. It's too much work. But when you put it into the deck, it's as simple as 5 areas. Number of customers, how much revenue from those customers, total expenses, net revenue, percent. So the net revenue as a percent. 4 years, you're fine. 3 to 5, whatever. A lot of times a company needs 5 because they don't start to really move until you're 5. And we know that in certain segments. But that's all they want to see. They're just trying to get their head around, do you understand what money is? Do you understand how it's going to work? Once you've gotten the money on to your canvas there, the next thing you want to do is you want to start digging in and start closing this thing up. And what is it that the investor is really there for? What's the deal? How much do you need? I sat back there and I asked the gentleman here, I said, how much do you need? I want to know. And I want to know how the money is going to be used and how the money is going to come into the company. Convertible note. Is it going to be project-based? Is it going to be straight equity? Is it first round, second round, third round? Everybody has 18 names for all those rounds. I want to know how the money's going to work because I'm the guy who's going to put it in. I want to see what I get. Very simply, though, I also want to hear, how are you going to grow the company? When you say, hey, we're going to do another round, great, I expect that. Do you have any idea what's going to happen? How could you? It's impossible. I love it when I read a deck and the guy says, well, you know, this is a $5 million round, but the next round is going to be $15 million, and the share price is going to go up 400% because we're going to do this, 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 this. And I look at him and I go, wow, can you go look at this other company for me? Because you're a futurist. I don't know how you came up with those numbers. And they made them up, I get it. But the real answer is very, very simple. The real answer is our board of directors will meet and decide when the next round is going to come out and what the valuation will be to maximize the return for you, the investor. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear that you guys are smart enough to get together every once in a while and say, we need more money, and we're going to raise price. So you make it very, very simple. Then I want to see comps. Okay, is everybody familiar with what a comp is? I don't want to talk past this because it's very important. So comp, a comparable. If I'm looking at med tech device of some form, and I look at that industry, let's say I look at the heart industry, I have a little experience there, and I look at LVADs, and I look at when they sold. Did they sell before they went into clinicals? After? How did they sell? Who bought them? I want to know those basics. Putting them into a simple chart that says this company was bought by that company for this price, and the best we know is it is approximately X per share. Now that multiple that you get out of there, it might be 6 or 7, but that's a multiple at time of sale. So as an angel or an early stage investor, when I look at the multiple when I got in, that's huge. So a good CEO will actually work backwards to the multiple so they can understand what's going to happen as they drive that number. Because a lot of times they go, hey, the company sold for 9x. Oh, that's great. When you dig in, you find out only half the money moved until they hit a milestone, and then the other half will move. 9x could end up being 4x. However, for the guys who got in early, it was 18x. So you really have to think through what the mechanics are of your comparables. And then finally, you get down to that moment of truth when you're going to finally deliver the summary and finish. And that summary has to be highlights from the rest of your deck. Pull those highlights out, just 3 or 4 or 5. And then finally, your last page is the one that everybody forgets to put up there. Remember, I never said anything from the beginning till now about putting your contact information on your deck. Why? Because a lot of people put it on the front page, and we as investors, we get down to the last page, and then we start searching on the web. Hey, I want to see what's going on there. And I don't have the contact information. Oh, I got his email somewhere. Put it on the last page of your deck. Put thank you on there, which is just subliminally saying you appreciate their time. Put your contact information, and that's what closes up the deck. Make it that simple. All right, so you have at least the basic framework